All right, so I know you wrote an article that had the snap count and observations. Let's take a look at some of the observations. Brown's now running a ton of 11 personnel as well as empty, and there are plenty of snaps available for Jalen Darden when he is ready. Let's take a look at those two. Really not a surprise if you got a quarterback that you're paying that kind of money to that has the skill set. 11 personnel makes some sense, don't you think?
Yeah, and the Browns have been really good at it empty all season long, even with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, I wrote an article back during the Pittsburgh game where I think they ran it 9 or 10 times, and every single time was a completion that kept the Browns in favorable positions with the sticks. So the Browns have always been a really good empty team, and looking at Watson's stats, his numbers out of empty from his time in Houston, he's one of the better quarterbacks out of empty as well. And if you just look at the distribution between wide receiver and tight end in the past, it's kind of favored the tight end. You know, the money Hooper was making, the playmaker David Njoku still was on limited reps in previous years compared to, we never really got a full OBJ, and Jarvis Landry was more of a slot gadget kind of guy. So it made more sense to put more tight ends on the field when you don't have playmakers at wide receiver. But now the Browns do have playmakers at wide receiver. Donovan Peoples-Jones is very close to being on pace for 1,000 yards. Amari Cooper is on pace for 1,000 yards. David Njoku was on pace for 1,000 yards before he started dealing with some injuries. So they have playmakers in the passing game, and the passing game hasn't really been the issue. So it makes more sense, spread them out. And then with Jalen Darden coming into the picture, he was inactive this week, being in the building less than a week. We saw Demetric Felton on the field 9 times. And then last week he was on the field quite a bit as well. And he was doing a lot of jet motion stuff, which is a lot of the stuff that Jalen Darden was doing at North Texas. When he was drafted by the Buccaneers run a very vertical offense, and he does have vertical speed, but Darden's not a guy that's going to beat press man. He's not a guy that's going to win downfield in the NFL frequently because he can't play through contact very well. He's not very big. So if the Browns can get him in space, get the ball to him in space, work off of that jet motion stuff, which Stefanski's been trying to do in the past with, JoJo Natson and Jakeem Grant, who then went on IR before the season even started. So it's always been on the precipice that he's always wanted to add this element, and I think that's the kind of role they're going to look for Jalen Darden. And so over these next 4 games, we'll see if he's active this week after another week in the building. But I do think that's kind of the role they want for him. And again, David Bell played 51 snaps. He's a 3rd-round pick. He's going to play his snaps, but I don't know if he's going to be playing 51 snaps week in and week out. So I do think there are snaps for Jalen Darden to see the field.
All right, defensive side of the ball. Perrion Winfrey is here to stay. Had his highest grade, one of the highest grades on the defense from Pro Football Focus. Tony Field's role doesn't change after a big week, and the final one. Will we see the young guys getting more snaps now that the Browns are essentially eliminated from the playoffs?
Yeah, so starting with Perrion, it's been 3 weeks in a row now that Tommy Togiai has been a healthy scratch, and Perrion Winfrey has gotten all of those rotational snaps, and his snap count has increased each and every week. And then this past week, he played even more snaps than Taven Bryan. So essentially, he played the 2nd most snaps of any defensive tackle to only Jordan Elliott this week, and I thought he played pretty well. It seems like he has turned a corner. He had a rough start to his rookie season. We all know it. But Myles Garrett has talked about mentoring him a little bit in some press conferences. So it seems like Perrion has really turned it around. He's really taken to the locker room and is really doing what he needs to do to continue to see the field and find more success incrementally on a week-to-week basis. As far as Tony Fields, it made sense against the Buccaneers and the Texans. The Browns would run a lot more base. Both of those teams don't like to spread the ball out. They like to run the football as well. The Buccaneers weren't very good at it, but they ran a lot of heavy run formations, which makes the Browns want to put more base on the field, 3 linebackers on the field. The Bengals, they're going to spread you out. So it made more sense. Tony Fields only played in base, and they were only in base less than 10 snaps against the Bengals. I thought maybe he could mix in with Deion Jones at Mike with Sione Takitaki going out for the season. But they rolled strictly with Deion Jones pretty much there with Kunasek playing a little bit as well at Mike as well. But, with JOK now out for the season, I think, Tony Fields is going to see a lot of snaps the rest of the way out. And that kind of leads into that last point as well of younger guys. So, Jadeveon Clowney's on a 1-year deal. He's friends with Watson. There's a pathway he comes back. I don't know if it's going to happen, though. So there's a pathway where they could say, we want to see Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas these last 4 games, then now that playoffs are essentially out of the picture. I still think we're going to see a lot of John Johnson because he's another guy who's going to be on the cutting block. So, if John Johnson doesn't show something these next 4 games, I don't see a way he comes back. But, guys like Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas, Tony Fields, young guys like that could really see the field a lot more over guys who, we know who they are, Jadeveon Clowney, guys like that. Taven Bryan, again, could continue to be phased out in more snaps for Perrion. I really think we're going to see the young guys starting to get snaps. So the Browns can have as much tape as possible to evaluate these guys going into 2023.